podcast joint with Ciara.
What up, yo? This is T-Money, and you are watching the T-Money podcast joint featuring Ciara Ross.
What's up? What's
in the
up?
building. What up, C? How you doing?
Man, I'm fantastic. I'm super excited about it. I guess I can't wait to get into what we have going on.
I see you got that
doing?
Poetic Justice joint on.
Come on now.
You see you got that Tupac on. Love, loyalty, and unity.
That's all we live by around here.
That's the action. That's the action right there. Hey, so listen, man, our next guest is somebody to be super excited about.
Yes.
You know, there's been many DJs throughout the hip-hop culture. I mean, hundreds of thousands of DJs. Yeah. And this DJ has reached heights that you could only imagine, my G. It's my man, DJ J.Period on the set.
What's going on? What's going on? Glad to be here, man. Glad to be here.
Baby. What's up, baby? My man J.Period, straight from Brooklyn through L.A. You know what I mean? L.A.
Worldwide now. We're worldwide.
That's right, baby. What's going on, dog? What's happening?
Man, glad to be here. We've been, had this in the works for a minute, so I'm glad to finally be here.
Because my man, that's right. I gotta say salute to my man D White in the building.
Yeah, shout out
he's
DK.
Not in the building. He's DK, right? You call him DK? Yeah. I call him White. If you saw him, you'd know why.
Oh Lord.
It's my guy, my man 50 grand. We go back like camel humps and suede fronts. That's my guy. Thank you for the hookup, Jay. What's the deal, man?
Yes.
Everything all right?
Yes, absolutely. That's my guy too.
Yeah. So, so we're here, man, because we like to actually profile artists or people in the culture who are doing great things, and yourself, you're one of them.
Word up. Appreciate
and doing something very unique, by the way.
Yeah, no question. But
cheers to that.
No question. Salute to that. We're gonna get into that. But as a DJ and producer, by the way, you've done so many things. You've worked with tons of artists. I mean, we're talking the Roots. We're talking about Rakim. We're talking Big Daddy Kane. We're talking about Mary J. Blige. Even we're talking about so many people on the Fugees. You know, talk to us a little first about how this all got started with you. Discuss your beginnings. I know you're an LA guy. You know what I mean?
My humble hip hop origins.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about
West to
that.
East.
Yes, indeed. And back and forth now. But honestly, this started with me discovering Beat Street. When I was a kid.
Beat Street. Yes.
I saw Beat Street, and a whole universe opened up for me. And and it was everything. It was all the elements of the culture. It was b-boying, it was graffiti, it was DJing, it was MCing. It was all represented there. And one of the things that's dope about that movie, when you learn the history of it, is they took the time to get it right. They have Crazy Legs in there. Harry Belafonte, like all the people that were involved. You see a young Dougie Fresh and all these folks.
You seen Dougie Fresh with the Jerry curl and the Cazelles. That's real talk,
right? OG Dougie Fresh.
That's right. Going all the way back before he was even doing the Dougie. He was like, "That's it." You feel me?
So that's sort of my portal, and through that, I just became obsessed. And in L.A. early days, going out in the park with a cardboard box and my little amateur graffiti.
You broke dance.
Oh yeah, I was a b-boy. No, I did a little bit of everything. Wow. So I did some writing.
So you fell in love. To use that term, when did you fall in love with hip hop? So you fell in love with hip hop when you saw Beat Street.
Yeah, that's the moment, and it's kind of never swayed or wavered since then. And I don't. I don't even know that I could put my finger on it, except that it's hip hop. You really see the incredible levels of creativity. I mean, listen, the verse that Melly Mel wrote for the rap at the end of that.
Yeah, Melly Mel killed it.
The second verse, which is not in the movie.
Oh, okay.
But which I wrote down. I remember at the time from my dad, as in like, listen, look at this. This is poetry. Like this is. That's saying something.
So hold on, wait, stop. So talk to me about that.
Okay.
So you wrote that for your dad so he can understand what was going on?
Yeah, I wanted him to understand why this music moved me so much.
And why it was so infectious. And
there was something about it because it was layers deeper than just like beats and rhymes. Like, especially with Melly Mel, by that point in time, is really saying something.
Well, Melly Mel was and still is one of the greatest MCs ever to touch a microphone. Period.
Yes, no doubt.
And when he spoke, when he does music, when he rhymes and he tells the story, he paints a picture.
Yes,
you know what I mean. And he paints a picture of, and you can just anybody can see exactly what he's trying to convey.
Yeah, I mean, I still
through his rhymes.
remember that verse
right.
to this day, and I think. you know, it started with that, and then I do remember, you know, writing down KRS-One lyrics, you know, writing things down to really show.
Again, one of the greatest, right?
Yeah, and my father, you know, was a teacher, and so, you know, I think that was the part where I wanted him to understand it on that level, that there's a message here.
Right.
And also he was a folk musician, so, you know, he understood, you know, music with a message. And, you know, so I got a lot of music as a kid, you know, of all kinds. And my sister, excuse me, was also, you know, very much into music. For her, it was more like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Led Zeppelin,
Oh wow.
Fishbone.
I like them.
Yeah, I mean,
I like Red Hot Chili
Police.
Peppers.
I mean, I discovered the Police through my sister, you know, her driving me to school. And, you know, my folks were more sort of, I guess, you know, rock and or folk oriented. I discovered jazz through flipping Tribe Called Quest records over. You know, like I didn't really, I only heard a little bit. I knew Miles Davis and John Coltrane, but I really did not have an extensive knowledge of jazz as a kid.
But Q-Tip did.
Well, yeah, and thanks to Q-Tip. And Tribe really was a turning point for me. Like when Tribe came out, they became my favorite. They've never, you know, not been my favorite.
Well, we'll talk about Tribe Called Quest just to piggyback off of that. Tribe owned a few years during that decade. They owned it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Which helped them get the followers they have. Like, if you're a Tribe Called Quest fan, you're still a Tribe Called Quest fan.
I mean, and you're a fan of, you know, 15 other groups that they birthed. You know,
facts.
And it's like the whole native tongue movement.
Native tongue movement. Latifah, Moni, De La,
you know,
right?
and even adjacent like Pete Rock and CL, you know, like there was a lot of stuff in that era. I'm fortunate to have grown up in that era where, you know, it wasn't just beats that would make you get on the floor. It was rhymes that would really make you think and or want to write down, you know, for your parents.
We had an interview earlier today that talked about the difference between some of the rappers who rap now and bar structure. And having bars and the importance of actually writing stuff that, you know, that means something, you know, meaningful passages.
Well, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
I want to get your intellectual opinion about something.
Okay.
Because you're a DJ and you've worked around so many different genres and people. How can I word this?
Just say it. Just say it. Just spit it out.
Is this like an old versus new kind of thing, or?
Yes and no, but pretty much in the sense of, like you just said, people are just putting beats over words. But when you're mixing back in the day, it had to make sense. So I can't just say, I don't know, hamla, 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 and then you come and scratch it in and put another song in. Or I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, the scratching or the mixing.
You're saying to take like elements from the lyrics of older records and mix it with the beats of newer records?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. That's one version of it. Or to take some of the newer artists like a Kendrick or a J. Cole, where their words do resonate, and put that over those older beats. And one of the things I do on my mixtapes is to do that to show a different side of the artist and the vocals, but also it paints the lyrics in a different light. So you hear it differently and it might resonate. And that's always the hip hop that moved me. You know, like I'm fine with all, you know, everything. I'm a DJ, you know, so I play it all. But when I'm at home, what I want to listen to is something that resonates on multiple levels. And that was always Tribe and, you know, and groups of that nature. But it was also Kane. It was also Nas. You know, it was also Biggie. You know, there's so many different versions of that, all of which were dope and incredible, and look at what's lasted.
I love Slick Rick myself.
I mean, Slick Rick is, I mean, listen, I'm a storyteller, so he's the original.
No question.
So speaking of the storytellers, is it a little bit harder now to make the story make sense with the new artists?
I mean, no, not necessarily. I think, you know, if an artist is an artist, then I think they're open to, you know, creating, you know, around an idea. If an artist is there for the money, you know, at some point in time, that's going to become apparent.
Right.
And, you know, and then that's that. And you know, there's a place for that.
Right.
But there's a place for all of it, really. You know, I think it's more just like that an earlier era had a place for all of it. And now I think like you know, it's filtered down, and the mediums that, you know, distribute the music are only really giving us a certain kind.
And I think the playing
makes
field's
sense.
more crowded now than it was before. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So-
but I also think there's creative artists, you know, a new crop of artists that poke through, and those are the ones where you're like, ooh, that's gonna last, and that's gonna last, and because it's overpopulated, there's more filler, and it might sound like, oh, you know, these new guys, but it's not that. It's just that it's harder to find your way to those creative people.
I'm not on that tip. I'm not a you know,
a hater of young artists.
Of young artists whatsoever. I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
Because I like to a degree how the music has progressed. You know, I obviously I have an affinity for people who spit bars like a Jadakiss or a Nas or whoever else, right? But I'm into them having expression. It's necessary.
For sure.
So that's very, very important to me, you know, regardless of what it might be. I mean, and people gravitate towards it as they need to, right?
For sure.
So
I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a hater in a sense. I just feel my opinion matters, and all opinion matters. I feel like depending on what you're doing it for, like you said, if you're just doing it for the money, maybe you don't care. But what about the self-worth? Because if you're doing it for the culture, you're trying to contribute. And right now, what's being added into the culture is totally different from when it started. And it was like beginning, it was a purpose, it was a message, kind of like, okay, let us be conscious, let us talk about our stories. Now, I don't hear that, and I could be totally wrong. I don't listen to everything. Honestly, I still listen to a lot of things from back in the day, because when I listen to what's going on today, it makes no sense. And everything, in my opinion, is a demise.
Well, I would say this.
Most, not everything. I don't want to say everything.
It might not make sense to you. It might not be for you. You know, like some of it is not for me. But, you know, the truth is that I do think that they're creative artists, and I think that it's more that it's cyclical. And because I'm watching some of these younger artists discover, I mean, really the way to think about it is, excuse me, every level of music has like a resonance and a vibration. So the music puts out a certain vibration and it affects people. But then the lyrics on top of that can put out a whole other vibration and affect people in a whole other way. If you could put that together, like voila, you know, hip hop.
Right.
And I think that there's plenty of young artists that are trying to say something, but you know, much of what motivates them might not be to say something. It might be, you know, to talk about what they're having fun or this or whatever in their music. Now, to me, personally, that's like a little bit of unrealized potential, because your music could be operating on another level. And what's funny is that you see some of these guys will do a record that is about something, and it's like, oh, okay, well, if that's in you, then like, why is that all you're doing? Exactly. And I would argue with that. You know, I'd argue with following the impulse to just do something simple and that only operates on one vibration. Like that's, you know, it's a waste of, you know, it's wasted potential. So, you know, I don't think that means that there's not artists out there now that are ill. And I mean, listen, I go to 1500 or nothing every time I'm in LA, and I just camp out and watch the number of ridiculously talented artists.
Artists that's trying to make
ridiculously talented artists, and see, you know, and that honestly gives me hope for the future. Because, you know, one of the things that happens from a lot of whack stuff coming out is there's a certain crop of artists, no, for real, that are like, well, that's whack, I need to fix that.
Or I need to do better.
Yeah.
Right. No question.
Yeah, all of that. And what's funny is like that's also in the story of the origin of hip hop. You know, like Grandmaster Flash talks about watching, you know, DJs that were playing the right records but not in the right way, and that was a motivator for him to be like, I got to solve this problem.
That's right.
How to make it go back and forth, and you know, and thus is born all of this. So
with that being said, so talk to me about you. Listen. You're here today, you know, because, you know, you're cool as hell. So let's be clear on that. But with that being said, you've garnered so much success with a lot of the artists you work with. I mean, you work with Lauryn Hill, you work with Talib Kweli. I mean, Black Thought, you know, salute to him. So many people, right? The Fugees, a whole bunch of people. What do you think? Why do you think that you've gained so much success through? Like I said earlier, like there's been so many DJs. I mean, there's a DJ every place. There's been DJs for decades, you know. I'm a DJ by trade. Myself and Dr. Dre DJ for many years, you know. Why have you been so successful? If you had to put it into,
I mean,
words, why have you been? Because you've been so successful. It's absolutely I mean, honestly, it's crazy. I mean, you do huge concerts, you're doing tours with all these artists, and you've reached a level of success. You gained awards. You've reached a pinnacle. Like if honestly, I consider certain people great DJs. You know, I mean, you could talk about Flex, you could talk about all these other people, right? But you have to put it's sort of like, salute to my New York Knicks, it's sort of like Jalen Brunson. You have to put you in the MVP conversation too, right? You're one of those guys. Talk to me a little about what you think, or why do you think you've been so successful doing what you do to this point?
I mean, I would say being a good listener is probably at the top of the list.
That's how you learn, right?
Yeah. You know, I think, you know, being an observer also, you know, learning, you know, understanding, you know, like all those kinds of things. But why have I had success? I mean, I've honestly thought about it plenty of times, and you know, and not to say that I feel like I'm successful, because I'm sort of halfway up whatever mountain I'm trying to climb.
Humble. That's I mean, because you could have easily been like, yeah, I'm the man in here. I'm the man. Yeah, and I'm doing what I see. But
no, but
being
that's
humble is a good look, right?
It still makes me laugh that people say thank you for being humble, because like I'm still happy to be here, and I think good. Like that's number two. Like that's not going away.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons I have success is because I'm always happy to be there. And most people have other motives, you know? And so like on some level that shows, excuse me, on some level that shows through to real artists. And then I think I'm also fortunate to have grown up in an era where artists were putting music out that resonated on multiple levels, so that it hit me in a way that made me want to then put that out into the world. And especially in a moment where you don't see it, you know, it feels like an extra responsibility in some way to do that. And so, you know, in some ways, that part I think is at the core of it. You know,
well, something to be said about the fact that you have talent as well. You know, I mean, you can be as humble as you want to, but if you're not talented enough to.
I mean, I would say my talent is listening and watching, you know, and I think that extends to all different kinds of things. But I think one of the ways is that, you know, if you listen carefully, if you watch carefully, if you come from, you know, a perspective of loving it and not like what's in it for me, things kind of unlock. This is one of the secrets that they don't really teach you. And it's also very counterintuitive to the way the world works.
This is very true.
But
so, at some point, listening is very good because you learn from that. But more importantly, you listen to the point where you're able to make whatever you listen to your own.
I think that's what it is.
You convert it to. I mean, because you can listen and I can wind up like if Ciara said something and then I listen to what she said and I regurgitate it and say the same thing. That's not really making it mine. I got it from her. You know. Right. But you've made it your own. You listen, you watch that and you've improved upon it. That in itself is where your talent comes. I
mean, in some ways, like I could take you to the seeds of all of the things that I do that, you know, are other people's ideas that I just was like, ooh, what if we turn this that way and turn this that way and that way? I think the revelation that I had was sitting in a listening session, you know, in 2003 with Nas for Godson, and, you know, all these college radio DJs, which I wasn't, but, you know, they had their recorders in front of him. And I was just listening to him talk. It's right after Ether, and he was just kind of feeling himself. And so he's telling his story in a particular sort of way. And I was listening to it, and I was recording it. And I thought, man, it would be so ill to take that story and mix it with his music and make that a mixtape. And it's sort of like that little thought then led me to go to him, and I kind of, you know, pitched it to him afterwards. I was like, yo, can I get a drop? I want to do this mixtape where I'd mix this, and he gives me the drop. I make the mixtape, you know, it ends up in Source, you know, tail of the tape by way of, I don't even remember how at this point in time. And then my man Q Unique from The Arsonists, who was one of the first people, you know, that really kind of helped put me on. He calls me because he's in a barbershop in Bushwick, and he's like, yo, they're playing your Nas mixtape.
Love it.
And I was like, is it mine or is it a bootleg?
Yep.
And he's like, it's a bootleg. And I was like, yes. Which nobody, you know, don't necessarily understand unless you're, you know, of that era. If your joint got bootleg, like it was hot.
You made it.
Somebody thought it was hot, bro.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, it was a funny thing, but, you know, that was kind of...
That's that 2 for $5.
Right. Listen.
That's right. 2 for 5 out there.
You know, shout out to my man Tamir Z. Brown, who, you know, he's like a Harlem hustler to the core. But 2 for 5 was our motto for many years because, you know, we were out there with mixtapes on Canal Street, on Fulton Street, really doing it. And again, super fortunate to catch the tail end of that era where I was like hand to hand hustling mixtapes. You know, like I remember one time I went to Central Park and Nas was performing at Summer Stage, and I brought, you know, a backpack full of Nas mixtapes and like cleared them out. And that was the moment where I was like, wait, I think I could really do this. Wow. And so, you know, some of it to me is, you know, sort of fantastical, and I look back and I don't even really understand, but I see the recurring thread as I love this thing. I want to be a part of it. And then the things just sort of unlock from there. So
the natural progression for all DJs is to actually produce music.
Yes.
Right? Myself and Dr. Dre became a production team. This was many years ago when we were on Def Jam. I mean, we worked and did songs with Slick Rick, and we wrote for Run DMC, and then, you know, we did remixes for Young MC. You know, this is back then. Yeah. So the natural progression of any DJ is to actually produce songs, and you've done several, right? So tell me what 'cause I mean, and when sometimes DJs stop DJing because they love production so much that they just okay, I no longer want to be a DJ. I mean, Dr. Dre is Dr. Andre Young from NWA.
Yes,
obviously he's a great DJ at one point, and then he became a producer, and then now he's known as being a great producer, right?
Yes,
and you're not going to catch Dr. Dre DJing any place,
right?
So
you'll catch Primo DJing.
But this is my point. This is my point exactly. So my point is, for you, which is it? Like, is DJing your advice or producing?
DJing.
Oh, DJing,
no question.
For sure?
Yeah, my production comes from taking things apart, you know, as a DJ. And, you know, that and the fact that, you know, Jazzy Jeff, you know, who has been like really an incredible mentor to me in, you know, this time.
Salute to Jazzy Jeff.
Yes, salute to Jazzy Jeff. Can never not salute.
Salute to
Jeff.
him, brother.
He gathered together a bunch of, you know, sort of alien producers and remixers at the Playlist Retreat at his house. Okay. And it was through that I started really thinking about, you know, producing. Because before that, you know, I would sit and make beats, and it'd be my best approximation of a Mobb Deep, you know, beat, which is my favorite.
Right.
And then after that, I started realizing how songs are made and about, you know, what different people do in the studio. And I think it turned from me being, you know, I'm going to do it all myself to more, I'm going to think about myself as Quincy Jones, and then where I feel like I need to step in and do this or that, I'm trying to make a bigger thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's more how I approach my mixtapes. You know, the mixtape isn't just a mixtape, it's ideas, it's, you know, inspirations and motivations, it's the stories behind things. And so when I wanted to produce, I needed it to be on, number one, on a level where it matched the things that I love, which took many years of like back to the drawing board, you know. And then also I wanted it to be like my mixtapes, you know, a story. And so that's taken many, many years, but I'm still a DJ first and foremost.
Oh,
for sure.
Okay, well that answered my question.
I love
Sorry, that was a
fact.
long-winded answer.
No, we love the beginning, the middle, and the endings. We love it all.
Word up.
Well, speaking of stories that you tell, let's get into some of the creative creations that you have created.
Yes.
I'm not necessarily sure which one came first, this side or this side.
Chapter 1 came first.
Okay. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, here we have Story to Tell, Chapter 1. This is my sort of debut album. You know, of course, as a DJ, I had to do wax.
It's on vinyl, which is crazy.
Come on now, that vinyl.
We got to show them. We got the clear wax.
Whoa! Show the
They
world.
don't know about that. Hold on. Don't know about that. You got to touch this a certain way. No fingerprints.
That's fine.
So, Story to Tell, Chapter 1 is the product of, you know, about 6 years of work. Features Black Thought, Tiffany Goucher, Masego, Shad, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Joel Ortiz, Bobo from Cypress and the Beastie Boys as well. And then cameos from Crazy Legs, Maida Del Valle, Bobito, Jamel Hill, And this guy right here, Dave Chappelle, is the narrator of my storybook. And
I love it.
to get him to be the narrator of my storybook, I had to drive 9 hours to Yellow Springs, Ohio, in the middle of the pandemic. But
it was worth it.
It was worth it. And so here,
you know what I love before? Hold on, don't stand there. Wait a minute. You wait a minute because they don't understand the art of this.
Yes.
This is the A side, y'all.
Yes.
A side. Back in the day, had a B side. So this is for you youngsters that don't understand the greatness that I am holding.
Yes, and on the A side is the whole of chapter 1, and on the B side is singles, instrumental, edits, and so forth for the DJs.
Love it.
Yes, had to do.
It gets even better though.
It sure does.
Keep that right there.
Yes.
It gets even better.
But
so
get into first.
So one of the things that, like I said, was important to me is that, I told a story with my production.
Exactly.
And so on the mixtapes, I told other people's stories. And on this, I wanted to tell my story, but not necessarily in a literal sense, more like my musical story. And just ideas that I feel like have helped me get to where I'm at. So, first record is Tiffany Goucher. It's called All in Your Head. It's really about sort of overcoming, the part of you. It's basically about the fact that the part of your brain that, doubt, et cetera, that holds you back, it's all in your head. The part that motivates you, that inspires you, like believe you can do anything, also all in your head. So it's a choice.
Right.
So that's kind of where the journey begins. And Black Thought, who is my, esteemed rhyme partner in the live mixtape, he drops the first verse basically about me going to Yellow Springs, Ohio to get Dave Chappelle on the album. So it really is autobiographical in that way. And then that record turns into a record about a basketball game between me and Masego, and Jamel Hill is the courtside reporter of that game.
Love it.
And then basically at the end of the game, Bobito walks away out into the city and then into a bodega where he hears a little salsa record playing. And in the bodega is Crazy Legs. They have a convo about that record.
Right.
Beat drops, and then that sample turns into a Gran Combo record with Lin-Manuel of Hamilton fame and Joel Ortiz. So this one is really like a story.
Are you going to do a video?
I mean, my dream is to do like this as a full movie.
Right.
Like a series.
Yes. So this one came out in 2021, and God bless Dave Chappelle for narrating and helped get us on the Tonight Show. So we actually performed that record on the Tonight Show in 2021.
Did see that.
Yes.
I didn't know that was you.
Yes, that was me.
Nice.
So yeah, and part of this storybook is this incredible illustration. So I got to shout out my man Dan Lish, and what we've done is animate this art. And on the Tonight Show, we actually had sort of an animated book open, and the illustration turns into real Dave Chappelle. He says something, and then it kind of freeze frames and turns back into animation.
This is great.
So
illustration.
The full extension of this is the basketball game became a full comic book.
That's
with
dope.
Jamel Hill making cameos. All the poses are like Jordan and Kobe that Dan Lish has created. And Shad, my man, I got to shout him out, does an incredible verse. This song comes from basically me playing Masego in basketball at Jazzy Jeff's house and beating him. And then
see how he had to point that out.
And then he wrote a whole song about it. And he beat me at that part.
Okay.
So we turned that into this, and then of course
it's a surprise at the end.
Yes,
Da-da-da-da.
it is a book and record set. So when I was a kid, I had Star Wars and all these book and record sets.
I don't want to put my fingerprints on it.
No, you're good. You can take.
You sure?
Yeah, and then that sort of is the fullest version of the illustration, but we're looking at animating a lot of this and turning it into a whole thing.
Yeah, that would be incredible if you can get that done in an animated series. That'd be sick.
Well, we have there's an incredible animator named Joe Vaccarino who he's got a company called Stellar Hawk. He has actually animated these. Maybe we can show your audience. There's a trailer that's animating that one, and then this one right here is Story to Tell Chapter 2, which comes out February 23rd. And this one is sort of a different version of storytelling. Each chapter kind of looks at it in a different way. And this one opens up in a jazz club with Andra Day and Aloe Black singing Hot Sauce, for which we made.
Let's talk about that.
Hot Sauce.
No question.
And shout out my man Scratch Bastard. I'm like plugging all these products now.
That's all good. That's
shout out my man
for
Scratch
it.
Bastard. We really just made this because it was too ill not to make it.
Right.
He has something called Bastard's Barbecue, where
Love the
he
name.
created this hot sauce with a company in Canada, and we partnered with him for that. And then That's the first single. The second one is Moo Fresh and my man Camp. And the third single is Joss Stone and Cardinal Official with some cameos from Estelle and Maida Del Valle.
That's real dope.
And my man Garth Trinidad.
Beautiful.
So this one is kind of love songs. I mean, they're not love songs necessarily, but the theme is love. It's kind of like,
so that's
like
and right there,
like a love, loyalty, and unity situation.
yes,
and right there, that speaks to your diversity right there, man. It's like those albums are totally
completely different.
Completely, and they're both hot, but it also fits the concept at the same time.
Yeah,
right?
and really comes from sort of the spirit as a DJ of combining all these different things together. And you'll see a lot of these combos are totally unexpected. You know, Joss Stone and Cardi, you know, Masego and Shad, you know, Black Thought and Tiffany Goucher, and that is older artists, younger artists, and me trying to bridge that gap in a lot of ways. And yeah, I mean, I think it is a continuum, you know, like I look at it from Flash, you know, all the way up to me, and the fact that I get to be here and be part of this is wild.
That's dope.
So of course I got to connect.
One thing that I appreciate is that you use conscious artists.
Word.
That right there is phenomenal because it seems as though that you've used old school and new school conscious artists to tell this story, and that right there is phenomenal. That I can tell it was intentional. I commend you.
I think that was. I don't even know.
I don't know if conscious is necessarily the best word to describe all of them, but I think, I mean, it's more like, you know, conscientious. You know?
I just
like
think
people that are
these
good,
people are
spirited.
pure artists.
Yes.
And so with that being said, it comes that way because that's part of what they are as people.
Well, yeah. What I was gonna say is that I think also they are all good people, and their music reflects that. Right. So it's like that's the conscious part of it. I think is that part, but also intentional, you know, like trying to do something that is about something as opposed
even
to
Ms.
just
Hill that you chose as your sideline reporter. And that's what I mean. I mean, no, she's not an artist, but she's very intentional about her movements. And that's what I mean. You manage to combine all factors.
Well, it's all great storytellers also from different aspects. And she's definitely an incredible storyteller. And Dave, you know, again, incredible storyteller. Dave is Dave.
Dave
you know,
is Dave.
So, you know, what more are you going to say?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chappelle.
So
Let me correct that.
I wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Now, you've been DJing, you know, all your adult life, right? So and you understand the culture to a degree. So and you talked about from Flash to you, right? So in the middle of that, there have been female DJs who have emerged as great DJs, right?
Yep.
And you know,
I could shout out several of them right now.
the first of them probably was Annie Nightingale, right? But you know, it's not really hip hop. So we're talking about what we're talking about. Wanda D's, if not the first hip hop female DJ. So my thing is, how do you feel about how they've, you know, impacted the culture to a degree, and you know their place in the culture, you know, because you know I'm looking at it like a lot of the women who have actually made contributions to this culture tend to get overlooked.
Yep.
You know, whether it be rappers, whether it be break dancers, whether it be
Graffiti
women in fashion or graffiti artists, you know, and I try to ask some of our guests, you know, how do they feel about, you know, the impact that the women have had, you know? I mean, because a woman like Wanda D has looking at it from my perspective, as being a great DJ, somebody like Wanda D has impacted your career in a sense because she's elongated or more importantly expanded, you know, the appeal of DJs overall because she's a female and she's been accepted. So, I mean, you're talking about Wanda, you're talking about Spin, you're talking about Coco Chanel, you're talking about so many great DJs.
Yes,
so,
I mean, down to Beverly Bond and Natasha Diggs.
Of course, Tasha and Beverly, of course.
Yes,
so,
I mean...
just speak a little bit about that.
I mean, I would say this, you know, one of the things that I think I remember noticing about Beverly Bond back in the day, you know, this is like early 2000s when I was DJing in New York clubs, you know, 2-3 times a week, was that she was the first female DJ I saw where her DJ skills superseded her female identity in a sense. And Beverly Bond is a model. I mean, she's beautiful, but she was so dope that it was not just about her being a female DJ. It was just she was a dope DJ.
Like Coco, same thing.
Yes,
Coco's dope.
And I think
Black
that
girls rock.
I mean,
and Joyce,
and she's created a whole platform for that. And I have, been there many times and rocked myself as part of that. Because look, you could answer that question a lot of different ways. I think one of the things that, I have tried to do is to encourage. It's like you watch, the WNBA now versus back when I was a kid. In many ways, that is the product of girls having access to those same videos and, those same moves and so forth over that arc of time, so that now you watch the WNBA and it's like, my goodness, like these girls are balling. Right. And it really does speak to what happens if you level the playing field and allow, sort of equal access in that sense. So I think that, the one thing that's hard is that, in this industry, it's harder to be a female DJ. The walk you have to walk to be a DJ is
it's difficult, let alone be
treacherous.
Female, right.
And to be a female DJ, I know it is because I've heard, some of these stories firsthand. But I also think that, if you can, have a woman who is strong enough to endure, all of that and has an armor, you know what I'm saying? To become a Natasha Diggs, where it's not about that. Like it's about like, wow, you bring a whole vibration. Like your stuff supersedes that. And so I do think, it's an obstacle. Obviously, it's an obstacle in the world. But I think that now you see, because of the access of the internet, a similar thing happening. So it's not just girl DJs, it's producers and engineers. And I watched a thing the other day that was about, it's like female engineers in a studio that's like, I'm a female engineer. You probably think I'm such and such and such and such. And I was
that
like,
right
on.
I think I saw that same thing. Yeah, I think I saw that.
Challenge.
I thought that was super dope. And I think that, that's the point you want to get to, where it's past the point of it being, okay, this is difficult. And now it's like, watch what I've overcome. And now look what's possible.
It speaks to what I said earlier about DJ's natural progression. And whether it's female or male, it's still the natural progression. But yeah, man. So I
don't know if I answered that.
You did.
You did. So this past summer, I had a chance. I met you, and I had a chance to actually go to one of your concerts. Big Daddy Kane and Rakim, Lincoln Center.
Yep, that's a big one.
That was so dope,
Mr.
bro.
Period, you forgot.
I'm so sorry.
We're gonna talk about it later.
We'll be back this August.
It was dope, bro. You know what I mean? And they came out. I mean, I am a huge fan of Antonio and Rakim. So that's why.
Antonio Hardy.
Names. Wait a minute.
Because
I can't do that. That's He'll get mad,
homie. I'm from that. You know what I mean? So. Antonio, exactly. That's what I all call him. You know what I mean?
Word up.
I know a lot of people's real names, so I don't. Let's not go there.
That's why I said we apologize in advance.
Kane ain't mad at that. He doesn't.
That's funny.
I don't think he minds that. I mentioned his name is Antonio. That's his name. I mean, come on. But my point is, the concert was amazing, and come to find out that you've been doing this with so many other artists. You did some stuff with Black Thought and Fugees and Talib, and it's been going on. So, and I know it's supposed to be. We'll get to that, but I know you're going to be doing a tour, right?
Well, there's a show at the Blue Note that we have coming up, which is another level. But yeah,
I need to be there for that because this last thing was so sick. So, speak to me about that and how that has helped your brand reach another level.
Well, I mean, the live mixtape, which is what we call it, or J.Period live mixtape, is really a concept that kind of started from me trying to take what I do on a mixtape onto a stage. And it was born sort of backstage at the Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival, where I would be rocking just for the crowd, and Chubb Rock would be back there, or J.Rue or somebody, and I'd be like, yo, can you come on stage and do your record? And it would be a surprise that would light up the crowd. So after a couple years of that, I asked Wes if I could put an actual show together with a few artists, and we did one with Brand Nubian. I mean, I had done several, but this was the first one that I felt like was the beginning of what it turned into. It was Brand Nubian, OC, and Black Thought. And
Nice.
the records that you can cover in that show
Right.
is like there's a lot
crazy.
of incredible songs. And Black Thought was, I mean, he just was, he lit the place up. And I guess when you play with a band, just having a DJ brings out a different side of you. So someone in the audience that was there runs a festival called the Manifesto in Toronto, and they then booked us to go up there and do the live mixtape. And now when we went to do this first one, I didn't have all those other artists. I only had Black Thought. Right. But I was like, wait, I've heard you do a Slick Rick. I've heard you do a Guru. Let's do a section of the show where I just throw these beats at you and you impersonate those artists. And man, yeah, it was nuts. And we did Rakim, Kane, G-Rap, and Slick Rick and Guru, and this was all recorded. Wow. So what we did that day, because this particular festival had 16 cameras shooting it, was we made a blueprint of what we were then going to build, and so. The live mixtape became this idea. Now with Black Thought, I only need one MC because he is everyone.
He's every MC.
Yes.
Right.
So we started touring that with just me and him, and then at the Roots Picnic, we did a version where it was like, okay, Black Thought would bring some friends, and now it was like, all right, Black Thought and J.Period live mixtape featuring X and Y. Right. And that has, grown over the years into a thing where this past year we did, Black Thought. It was J.Period live mixtape featuring Black Thought, Busta Rhymes, and Eve. And last year it was Benny the Butcher and Rick Ross. And before that, I mean, we've had Jadakiss and Fabulous and Mobb Deep, rest in peace Prodigy, and Fat Joe, and so many different artists. And in that time, this idea of a live mixtape starts brewing in my head. And so in 2019, we did a show at Sony Hall, which was Black Thought, Pharoah Monch, and Rakim headlining.
I remember that. I didn't go, but I remember the show advertised.
Yes. So for that show, I brought a Pro Tools engineer to multi-track record it, and we made an album. And I was like, okay, we're doing this every time now. Like that's what the live mixtape is. I'm going to make a mixtape live on stage while everybody's watching. Dope. And that's how that evolved to the point where I just embraced that idea. And I think from years of working with Black Thought and with the Roots, you become very good at responding to audibles. Right. And and especially when you're a DJ and they're a band and you can't move in the way that they can melodically. So you got to really know what you're doing. And with Thought, when I would do these live mixtapes, the thing that made it was you have to respond to him. Like I'm there creating like a framework, but he's Black Thought, so he's gonna go. He might go on 75 bars, Right. And so I had to figure out a way to make the show adaptable. In that way, so you could have it be structured but also improvisational. Right. And now that has turned into Big Daddy Kane and Rakim at Lincoln Center, and or Queen Latifah and Remy Ma and Moni Love at the Smithsonian last year. I mean, last year I got the opportunity to do this in ways where I couldn't even have dreamed. Wow. And when you get to the end of this arc of my 2023, I get a call from Questlove and he's like, are you ready? This is your put me in coach moment. I'm like, I'm sorry, what are we talking about? and he basically says, did you see what I did at the Grammys in February? And I said, of course. And he said, well, we're doing it again, but it's going to be 2 hours and I need help. And I was like, what do you need? And I start making demos. And by the time I have made one and, they're like, okay, make another and another. And I'm making these themed, like a Native Tongues mix, a West Coast mix, a Club Bangers mix, a Dirty South. Well, actually, no, I take it back. Jermaine Dupri was working on the Dirty South one at this time. But what ends up happening is that by the time I've made all these demos, I'm like, okay, what are we what is this? And it turns out it's the CBS salute to 50 years of hip hop. Wow. So, I'm flown out to LA, and then I sort of start to realize the scope of this thing. And what I'm actually doing is basically making 7 live mixtapes. Oh, wow. All of which are going to comprise this show. And there's 50 different artists that you have to sort of navigate. And I just felt like this is a full circle moment because, all the things that came up in this, I'd been over many years experiencing and preparing. whatever it is, go talk to the artist to figure out what they want.
Right.
Sometimes that, but I'm like, okay, who are we going to talk to? And just roll up, and I was solving problems left and right, and ended up, by the time this was done, I was the music producer for the Grammys salute to 50 years of hip hop.
Wow.
So,
man, just moving on up.
Way to go, Jay. That's what I'm talking about. That's
so
dope.
So that I think has just blown open my mind to the possibilities of where we could take this. And again, it's grounded in real hip hop. Like, we're taking the best parts of the best records. We need to understand the records in order to know what the best parts of the best records are, and put it together in a way that flows and feels right. And so, like, there were people that were critical of the 50th anniversary and sort of who suddenly popped up to represent and now make a thing of it, and I appreciate that perspective. But for my part, everything I was handed was as authentic as I could possibly make it, and I feel like really did represent the best of hip hop. So
the only criticism, I'm sorry, that I noticed that was it permeated throughout the whole
year
time was the fact that it wasn't it was a small circle of people who got focused on, even though it was because there were so many people that were outside of the East Coast, I should say, right?
Yep.
That felt that they didn't get represented properly.
I mean, 2024 is a long year.
So I mean, it happens. I mean, but
it's gonna happen.
But it can still happen. You know what I mean? So I mean, salute to everybody who's contributed, man. But this is amazing, brother.
Truly.
So
Cheers.
I want you to tell us what's next. I know you were doing the tours, and
yes,
when are they going to start? When can I come actually see what you're doing?
Well, one of the hopes for 2024 is that we turn the live mixtape into a proper tour. The complication of that is the same as the complication of any of these things. It's just like trying to line it up, with all of these different artists. And I've taken on a big task and always wanted to have a really dope combo of artists. The next wave of this for me is a little bit of a shift, which is more a live mixtape that incorporates a live band. And so I did an experiment about 2 weeks ago. There was a Dilla concert. Well, it wasn't even a Dilla concert. It was Winter Jazz Festival. But with Ray Angry from The Roots, we put together a Dilla show, a tribute, and it was one of the most incredible bands. It was Thaddeus on bass and Casey Benjamin and Stro Elliott, and I mean, I can't even Spanky on drums. Like it was an all-star band.
That's dope.
And because of Serato Stems now, I'm able to dissect these records in a new way on stage. And so what that means is, I don't know how much I have to explain, like, for the non-DJs that are listening.
They can Google it.
Well, what Serato Stems makes possible now is any DJ can separate the vocal, music, bass, and drums instantly with the push of a button. So if I'm playing a record and suddenly I want to hear it with just the vocal over the drums, I mute the music and the bass, and that's what I'm hearing. So with these Dilla records, what I was doing was combining them with a band in kind of a new way, because you've never been able to mute the melody and keep the drums in a record.
Wow.
And so the band is playing
the record. But you have the record playing,
But the record
the
is
essential
playing.
part of the record playing, so it doesn't sound crowded.
And with a Dilla record,
wow.
With a Dilla record, the bass and the drums. But then you got, me and Thad are looking at each other, and I'm like, okay, now it's you, and I mute the bass.
Wow,
and now he can move with it. And so with musicians, they have to be like of a certain caliber for this to work. But that is the experiment that we're about to do at the Blue Note Jazz Club. So Story to Tell Chapter 2, which is, this piece, which we premiered at the Blue Note Jazz Festival, and which features Mumu Fresh, who's going to be sort of my Billie Holiday band leader,
Love it.
and then just an ill
Mumu's incredibly
assembly.
talented too, man. By the way.
Mumu is, Mumu and I are going to make her Illmatic before I'm done. I believe in her as an MC. To a great degree, and I just think she's incredible.
Yes,
and talk about being intentional.
Yeah.
Like as the world is in the state that it's in, I spoke to Mumu Fresh, and I was like, what are you doing right now? And she's like, I'm just singing in healing frequencies. I was like,
wow.
Real thing.
Down to the raw fundamentals of it. She's incredible. So the Blue Note Jazz show is going to be Ray Angry on keys, Stro Elliott on percussion and pads, Mark Kelly from the Roots on bass, and Queen Cora on drums. And I had to have Prince is my favorite, so I had to have some Prince representation.
True stick from Mark.
Yes, and Marcus Machado on guitar, and then a couple of secret surprise special guests who are gonna pop in.
Don't spill it
and
all.
spit
Don't
some
spill
bars.
it all.
I'm not spilling nothing. But that's really what I'm excited about now is sort of experimenting with the live mixtape and a live band. Okay. And so we're doing that. Excuse me, and then Story to Tell comes out. This joint right here on February 23rd.
That's right.
And where can the audience get it?
I mean, this vinyl right here, you're going to have to get from my website or actually through Get On Down. Get On Down is going to be distributing our vinyl for this one. And then, any streaming platform will have the record, which is very exciting, as a mixtape DJ to have your music somewhere that everyone can hear it.
I tell you, that's dope.
Yes. And then we got a series of shows at Lincoln Center following up what we did last year. So some DJ nights. So there's one themed around love songs on March 2nd called, I forget what it's called, the name of the night, but we have another one that's themed around sort of storytelling hip hop records on March 25th, I think. And then, we're already getting close to Roots Picnic is in June, and I already know what it's going to be, and I can't say that one yet, but that's also very exciting. The picnic now is, 60,000 people out there, so it's epic. And I think that 2024, you're gonna see a lot of, like you said, what was missing in 2023. I think I tried to, in my way, fill in those gaps last year. So the Kane Rock Him thing was something I felt like for hip hop had to happen. And, I was waiting for Versus to do it, and so I had to do that. We also did, I think, the only all-female lineup show of the year. There were others where it was like a little part of a bigger show, but the live mixtape, Queens edition, or not Queens, but with Latifah, that we did down there was also something I felt was missing. So this year I'm trying to do much more of that, and we'll see. And there's some collaborations in the works with Mr. Chappelle as well. So,
no doubt, brother.
So where can your new audience find you? Because I'm sure you gained some fans and followers after all of this.
I know we did a lot of talking. On Instagram is the primary place, J.Period BK. So it's J.Period BK. And on Twitter, same, J.Period BK. Same on YouTube. Across the board. Some of these shows are on my YouTube channel, including one that I did with Rakim, which is gained some notoriety online. One that we did on a rooftop, which is incredible, with Rakim in Brooklyn, and then another where I basically threw Biggie beats and Jay-Z and Nas and Mobb Deep beats, and he rocks over all of them.
I have to check that out.
That's sick.
That is a moment. We did that during the pandemic.
Wow.
So
salute to Rakim.
Yes, salute to the God MC.
God MC.
And salute to you as well.
I mean, listen,
brother.
Cheers to that.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Bro.
Thank you. You have been phenomenal. Congratulations. I'm wishing you much, much, much success on everything you got going on. Keep representing the culture. Continue to do it for the love and stay amazing.
Word up.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.Period in the building. Woo!
Thank you.
You don't get no better than that, man. This here's the T-Money Podcast, Joy. My man J.Period in the building. Ciara Ross.
Hey!
Peace, two fingers. We'll catch you on the next time. Yo, go get this right here. Go get that.
Story to Tell.
And don't forget,
Chapter
like,
2.
All right.
share, subscribe, tell a friend. Ew.
And we out.
T-Money Podcast, joint with Ciara.